Hello and welcome to Gavia Aimer Gaming. This is Grant and this is my first battle report of Warhammer Fantasy. It's a 4,000 point game with my Empire army versus a High Elf opponent. Just to take you through a couple of house rules, we use only two pieces of magical terrain. So the first piece of terrain that each player rolls is magical, and then everything after that is just ordinary. And then the second house rule is just regarding cannons. So cannon shots that target a character that's riding a mount are distributed as per shooting instead of hitting both the rider and the mount. So on a 1 to 4 it hits the mount, and on a 5 or 6 it hits the rider. So just taking you through my Empire army, from left to right on the screen we've got 4 Demigryph Knights, and back behind that a cannon. Beside the Demigryphs is a steam tank, and then we've got a block of 29 Inner Circle Knights with full command, and then there as well is Karl Franz. Back behind the Knights we see the Celestial Hurricanum, and then beside the Knights there's a Archlector on War Altar. I went with a light council kind of army, so beside the War Altar is a unit of 38 Halberdiers, and there's a Warrior Priest in there and a BSB. And then with 2 detachments to the Halberdiers, there's 5 Free Company, and each of those has 2 Light Wizards, 2 level 1s in one of the units, and a level 1 and level 4 in the other. Beside the War Altar in front of the Halberdiers is two Hellblasters, and then a second unit of 4 Demigryphs, and then right back in the back is a cannon. Here's a picture of my right flank and a picture of my left flank. Looking at the High Elf list from its right flank, starting on the left-hand side of the screen, moving to the right, we've got 2 Frostheart Phoenixes, and then a unit of 35 Phoenix Guard. It has full command, and in there as well as a Noble BSB, a Metal Mage who's level 2, a second level 2 High Magic Mage, and they also are carrying the Banner of the World Dragon. And here's a look at the rest of his army. So we've got, beside the Phoenix Guard, 15 Silver Helms, and then all his flyers. So he went with a very mobile list. He's got his General, which is a Prince on a Griffin, and he's carrying the Star Lance, which gives him +3 strength and no armor saves when charging. Behind the General is a Fire Mage on the Sun Dragon. He's level 2. And then we've got a Lothern Sky Cutter, and back behind the Sky Cutter is a level 4 Shadow Mage who's on a Moon Dragon. And then on the far right-hand side of the screen, we've got 50 Seaguard with full command. To turn 1, and Empire got the first turn. I used one of my steam points just to point the steam tank at one of his dragons, and moved the Demigryphs up a little bit just to keep pace. And rest of movement, really nothing. I wanted to just sit back, use my banishments, use my cannons and my Hellblasters to dwindle him down, take out as much as I could before getting into close combat. In Magic, it was 4 dice to 2. I used all 4 of my dice to cast Banishment from the War Altar, targeting the Silver Helms, and killed 7, but they were able to pass their panic test. In Shooting, the cannon from the steam tank did 4 wounds to the Sun Dragon, and then one of the cannons targeted his General there on the Griffin, but missed. The second cannon targeted his Frost Phoenix, but it was able to make a ward save. And here's just a shot of the Empire line looking down the right-hand side of the table. And another close-up of the Empire army looking down the left-hand side of the table. In High Elf movement on turn 1, we see that the Sea Guard moved up into the Poison Forest. And then here's the movement on his right flank, so both of the Phoenixes flew up onto the hill. He moved his Phoenix Guard and his Silver Helms up a little bit, and then flew his General back behind the Phoenix Guard, maybe just to try to give it a little bit of protection from some of the shooting. And on his left flank, he moved his 2 dragons up to threaten the right side of my line. And here's just a shot of the board after the High Elf turn 1 movement. In Magic it was 10 to 8. I dispelled his first spell, which was Searing Doom that he cast as the Demigryphs there in the middle of the screen. And then he actually failed to cast a spell, which gave me an advantage in dice, which I used to dispel his last attempt. Shooting, he took a shot from the Bolt Thrower on the Sky Cutter at the War Altar, but missed. And the Sea Guard at the top right-hand part of the screen took 30 shots at the Steam Tank and managed to get 1 wound through. With no close combat in turn 1, we move into Empire turn 2, and a couple of charges. The Demigryphs charged into the Fire Mage on the Sun Dragon, and the Steam Tank used 3 steam points to plow into the Shadow Mage on the Moon Dragon. And then this was probably the first mistake I made. I saw a juicy target in that Sky Cutter there for my Knights, thought it would be an easy win. Wanted to sort of maybe move it up to keep pace with the Steam Tank and the Demigryph. So I charged after the Sky Cutter, but of course it realized it would not have a chance against all those Knights, so it fled. Here's just a close-up shot of the Demigryph charge onto the Fire Mage. And here's just a shot of the rest of Empire turn 2 movement. You can see the Demigryphs moved up a little bit, and the Knights charged after the Sky Cutter. That's where they ended up after failing that charge. They did take 2 dangerous terrain checks for going through the river, and they failed 1. In Magic, it was 5 to 5, and here's another mistake. I moved away from my strategy of sitting back and using banishment. I decided to be a little bit cute and cast the Net of Amantok on his fleeing chariot, the flying chariot, the Sky Cutter. Thought maybe if it didn't rally, it would have to move and it would have to take a strength test, or if it did rally and wanted to reform, it would have to take a strength test. Instead of casting just banishment at it and killing it. It was a miscast as well, so I miscast with a 6, and in the process lost 3 free company, and both of my level 1 wizards also took a wound. I shot with the Hellblaster at the Phoenix Guard and did 2 wounds, and this turn my cannons did nothing. In close combat, the impact hits from the Steam Tank were able to kill the Moon Dragon. The Mage survived, fled from the combat, and the Steam Tank, of course, was unable to pursue. And in this combat with the Demigryphs, they actually failed their fear test from the terror-causing dragon. They still were able to manage to win the combat by 1 or 2, but the dragon held. Into High Elf turn 2, we've got 2 charges, 1 from each of the Phoenixes into the 2 War Machines there. No other real movement. The Sky Cutter did rally. Remember, he was netted from the Net of Amantok. Did fail its Strength 5 test, rolling a 6, but took no wounds from the spell. In Magic, it was 7 dice to 5, and this was actually a very good move by my opponent. The Shadow Mage cast a spell and used the lore attribute to switch places with his level 2 High Magic Mage. If you remember, the Shadow Mage was standing right in front of the Steam Tank waiting to get plowed down. That was his level 4, and the level 2 High Magic Mage is in that unit with the Phoenix Guard right at the top of the screen, and so he was able to save his level 4 and he sacrificed his level 2. In close combat, the first Phoenix killed the cannon and overran, but fell just short of the halberdiers. The second cannon killed the Hellblaster and did make it into the flank of the halberdiers. And in this combat with the Demigryphs, they did not fail their fear test this time. They were able to beat the dragon in combat, and it fled, but it did get away. It ran through the Sea Guard, but they did pass their panic test, and that's where the Demigryphs ended up in their pursuit. And in Empire turn 3, we've got some charges. The Demigryphs that are on the left-hand side of the screen charge into the Silver Helms, and then the Steam Tank used its random movement to plow into that level 2 High Magic Mage. And then right at the top of the screen, you can see the 4 Demigryphs that were chasing down that dragon decided to take a chance and charge into the Sea Guard that are standing in the Poison Forest. There's a picture of the completed charge against the Silver Helms, and in Magic it was 12 dice to 5. I used some dice to cast Faw's Protection on these demis just to give them a little bit of support. And then I cast a Banishment on this general on the Griffin, and I think maybe did 1 wound. I used my Hellblaster again to try to whittle down that Phoenix Guard unit. I knew they had the Banner of the World Dragon, so I thought the only way I was going to be able to get them down was shooting with the Hellblaster. Unfortunately, only did 2 wounds. And then in close combat, of course, the impact hits from the Steam Tank were able to kill the High Magic Mage. In the combat between the Demigryphs and the Silverhelms, the Demigryphs took no wounds, brought the Silverhelms down to 4. They ran and got away again. There was a little bit of a theme for this game. The High Elf army seemed to flee from a lot of combats and got away. The Empire army, when they fled, they didn't have such luck. That flee from the Silverhelms did, however, cause this Skycutter to panic. It landed in the forest but did not take any wounds from dangerous terrain. And in this combat here, remember only the smaller Phoenix is actually in base contact with the Halberdiers. It still managed to do, looks like 8 wounds, but the Halberdiers are steadfast and they stick. And in the last combat of the round, this unit of 4 Demigryphs that charged into the Sea Guard, I think took 1 wound from stand and shoot, then went in and with its 40 attacks, they managed to get 14 wounds through. Of course, I do have a 1-up save, so as long as I don't roll too many 1s, I should be okay. But of the 14 saves I needed to make, I actually rolled 7 1s, leaving only 1 Demigryph behind. 1 Demigryph is not enough attacks to do any damage, so he fled. The Sea Guard decided to restrain from pursuing, knowing that that Demigryph was going to be rallying on double 1s, and it does not rally throughout the game, actually runs off the table in turn 6. So here's a shot of the Empire army after turn 3. In High Elf turn 3, the larger Phoenix down at the bottom left-hand part of the screen charges in to help his buddy against the Halberdiers. The Silverhelms were able to rally. The Skycutter was able to rally. And this Fire Dragon was also able to rally. Here's a close-up of the 2 Phoenixes in combat with the Halberdiers. And another movement, the general on the Griffin flew up into the flank of the Demigryphs just to provide a little support to those Silverhelms, and also the Phoenix Guard turned around to face the Demigryphs as well. Here's the left side of the table after movement. And here's a picture of the right-hand side of the table. In Magic, it was 8 dice to 9 after channeling, and with the advantage in dice, the High Elf player was not able to get anything through. The Sea Guard did take shots at the Steam Tank again and got 3 wounds through, putting it up to 5 wounds. In close combat, the 2 Phoenixes were able to kill 11 Halberdiers, but they are still steadfast and hold. So we go into Empire turn 4. The Demigryphs at the top of the screen charge into the last 4 Silverhelms. And again, this is maybe a mistake. I thought here was my one chance to really get a good shot at killing that Phoenix Guard unit, so I decided to charge my bus of knights, my horde of knights, into the Phoenix Guard, thinking that with the charge, the extra strength bonus from the lances, I might be able to break them. And on the right-hand side of the table, the lone Demigryph continues to flee. In Magic, it was 8 dice to 4. The High Elf player used his scroll this round, and I wasn't able to get anything through. I did shoot the Steam Tank cannon at the Fire Mage's Dragon, and was able to kill it. And then the Skycutter there that you see on the left-hand side of the screen was killed by the Hellblaster. after combat between the Phoenix Guard and the Knights. The Knights lost 4, and the Phoenix Guard, I think, lost 6. Turned out that the Phoenix Guard lost the combat only by 1 or 2. We both had the same number of ranks, so nobody was steadfast, but the Phoenix Guard made their break check and held. And disappointingly, the Demigryphs were not able to finish off the Silverhelms. There's 1 remaining, and he held. And the 2 Phoenixes continue to punish the Halberdiers, doing 13 or 14 wounds, but still they remain steadfast and they stick. I think this picture might be slightly out of order, but it does show that the general on the Griffin was able to charge into the flank of the Knights. And in the rest of movement, the mage that was on the dragon that had been killed by the steam tank, he was standing right where that pile of dice is. He actually ran up into the forest to get a little protection from the Hellblasters. I don't remember what the magic dice were, but the Shadow Mage was able to get Malkoth's off on the Knights and reduced all of their stats by 2, the biggest one being weapon skill. And since there's no more high elf shooting, we go into close combat. The 2 Phoenixes that were in battle against the Halberdiers were able to kill a few of them, unfortunately not all of them. That allowed them to pursue when the Halberdiers fled and run right into the Celestial Huracanum. And in this combat, the Knights go down horribly to the Phoenix Guard and also to the Griffin. Remember that General has the lance that gives him +3 strength and no armor save, so he was able to kill a few, and then the Phoenix Guard took out a few. And with that spell that was reducing the weapon skill of the Knights by 2, I just wasn't able to get any hits through, so the Knights fled after I also forgot to roll the 3rd dice for Karl Franz's Hold the Line rule. They get caught by both units, and this is where they ended up after their pursuit. And then, desperate for some points, I made maybe the last foolish move. Thought this was my only good shot at having any chance at getting that Phoenix Guard unit. So I decided to charge those Demigryphs at the top of the screen into the flank. I knew that they would be steadfast, but there was a chance that they could maybe fail that break check. And then in Magic, it was 7 dice to 4, but nothing really of note occurred. In the rest of movement, the steam tank used 3 steam points to roll into the mage on foot in the forest. Did fail its dangerous terrain and took 4 wounds, which brought it up to 9, but that left it with 1, which was just enough to get the impact hits off on the mage. And I used my Hellblaster to take aim at the Griffin and was able to kill the Griffin, but the general, the prince, survived. And in close combat between these 2 Phoenixes and the Celestial Huracanum, the Phoenixes were only able to manage 2 wounds against the Huracanum, and it held. And then at the top of the screen, that flank charge by the Demigryphs into the Phoenix Guard. The Phoenix Guard did lose combat, but they made their break test, and they turned to face. And this is after combat of High Elf turn 5. There was no real magic or shooting, no other movement, but the 2 Phoenixes managed to finish off the Huracanum, and they reformed like that. And in this battle, there are 2 dead Phoenix Guard, a couple of extra wounds placed on the Demigryph, but this battle continues. Here's a view of the table just before Empire turn 6 movement. Really the only movement in turn 6 was the Demigryph on the right-hand side of the screen fleeing off the table. And I did try to turn the steam tank around to take a shot at the Phoenix, but it misfired and didn't take a wound, so it's still alive with 1 wound remaining. And here's just a picture of the table from the High Elf player's point of view. And in other movement, I just moved the larger detachment there, the one on the left, who has the level 4 wizard in it. That's the wizard with the blue cloak. Just shuffled him off to the left a little bit, just to get him out of the forward arc of the Phoenix. And as it turned out, this was actually a very good move for me. Not only did it preserve the level 4's points, but prevented that Phoenix, that taller Phoenix who's not in contact with anybody right now, prevented him from making any charges. He doesn't fit between the two detachments, and he's actually in the flank. If he was going to charge the smaller detachment on the right, he would be in the flank, so he would have to go in between those. He doesn't fit. And there's also an engineer there just outside of the river that you can see silver unpainted in front of the war altar. And he's preventing a charge against the front of the war altar. So again, the base of the Phoenix won't fit between those two units. So really prevented the Phoenix from making any charges against any higher point units. He could charge the engineer, of course, but that was really his only target. In Magic, I was really hoping for a large Magic phase to banish both of those Phoenixes off, and I rolled actually double sixes, so I was ahead 12-6 in dice. Figured I could get 2 banishments off. Both of these Phoenixes are on 4 wounds right now. So I cast the first one from the war altar with 6 dice. My opponent tried to dispel it with all 6 of his dice and failed, so that one went off. And then I proceeded to roll a 3 for the number of hits that went through. Did manage to get all 3 wounds on the Phoenix, but of course that left it with 1. And then I thought, okay, maybe I'll be able to get that Phoenix with something else, so I mistakenly cast my banishment on the other Phoenix and managed to roll 5 wounds, but only 3 got through the ward save. So both these Phoenixes at the end of my turn 6 are sitting on 1 wound. In shooting, instead of targeting those Phoenixes and finishing them off, I decided to go after his general to get more points. So the Hellblaster targeted his general and killed him. And here's a view from the side of the table, looking down just before Empire turn 6 close combat. And after close combat, the Phoenix Guard managed to break the Demigryph unit. They pursue him but don't catch him, but he's right on the board edge, and the Phoenix Guard will chase him off the table in their turn 6. And here's just a better picture of that predicament that Phoenix is in. He's not able to complete any charges against the war altar or either of the detachments. And instead of trying to get the 65-point engineer, he tried to make a long charge against the cannon, which is at the far right-hand side. He needed an 11 and failed, and so just shuffled forward a little bit. This Phoenix completed a charge against the Hellblaster. Magic was only 3 dice to 3, so nothing went through. And then in close combat, the only real combat left is where this Phoenix kills the 3 crewmen of the Hellblaster, and that's the game. So in the end, we have a big win for the High Elf army. We added up the points. It was 2,916 points for the High Elves to 1,760 points for the Empire. Really, I think the biggest mistakes, as usual, going against and falling out of your initial strategy is never a good thing, especially when I sent those Empire Knights up. Got greedy with a couple of charges, thought that I could win, and sent them out away from the rest of the line, where they didn't really have any support. I think it would have been better to hold back, continue to banish them, continue to shoot them with my cannons and my Hellblasters to try to really dwindle them down, and then allow, when I did make a charge with the Knights, to have some support. Unfortunately, when they did charge into those Phoenix Guard, they were on their own. There was no support from the Celestial Hurricanum, so no +1 to hit. There was no support from the War Altar to give hatred or prayers, a ward save, reroll to wound prayers, anything like that. So really they were out there on their own, and that was the big mistake, which cost me the game. So congratulations again to the High Elf player, and I look forward to a rematch. Thanks for watching.